Very good. Welcome. It's 5:06 on February 8. I will call the meeting to order. This is Utility Board, Mercer Island Utility Board. I'm the chairman, Tim O'Connell. Madam Clerk, do we need a roll? I think we might. I guess we don't have a clerk. I'll go ahead.
Elaine, you're muted.
Elaine, are you serving as our clerk?
Patrick and I are pinch hitting this, so.
All right.
Yeah, I can do it if you want.
Why don't you, Patrick? Just
okay, sure.
It's a good form to have it be done
My
by someone
pleasure.
other than me.
Yes. Okay. Councilmember Anderall.
Present.
Board Member Pokorny. Not here. Board Member Majewski.
I'm here.
Board Member Milton.
Present.
Board Member Marshall.
We are given to understand that Board Member Marshall is attempting to join us.
Chair O'Connell.
I'm present.
And Vice Chair Thomas.
I'm here.
Okay.
Very good. Call the meeting to order. First order of business is public appearances. I'm informed that we have no one attempting to make a public appearance. Is that correct? It is. I see a nod. Yes.
That is
So I'll
correct.
move on to approval of the minutes of the meeting of December 14. Those were included in your meeting packet. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, so moved. They looked great.
I saw both Mr. Chair, Vice Chair Thomas and Board Member Milton move almost simultaneously. We'll give one the honor of having made the motion and the other the second. Any discussion of the matter? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Alan or Aline, have we heard any update from George before we move on to other regular business?
Yes, I've just heard that he's going to be joining as an attendee, and as soon as I see him, I will promote him to panelist.
Very good. Very good. Well, given that George will be joining us, I'm going to just use my discretion, if that's okay with everybody, and let's talk about the water meter replacement contract first, since that is a topic that the board has addressed before, and I think it'll be easier for him to catch up if we talk about that first. So I'll turn it over to whomever.
Let me go ahead and get the presentation started here.
Great.
And Patrick, maybe if you see George join as an attendee,
Okay.
promote him. I'm never the person who has trouble with sharing screens, and now all of a sudden my screen has decided it wants to take over. Okay, let me try this again.
Good.
Let's see if you all can see that. Can you see that okay?
Yes, we can see it fine.
Fantastic. Great. So we are going to give some updates here on the water meter replacement project that is ongoing currently. And then I'm going to pass the baton to Patrick Yamashita, and he's going to give the update on the ARPA funded projects, or the ask for ARPA funded projects. So first, I'm going to just review where we've been with the water meter replacement, or AMI, project. So the last time the utility board was updated on this project was a year ago at the February meeting of the utility board. Just as a very brief reminder, we have approximately 7,800 or just over 7,800 water meters on the island that are in active service. And this project is really looking at changing over all of those water meters to an automatic read system that is where the data is electronically, wirelessly downloaded to the city. And so there's a lot of different reasons why this project is happening. One of them is that a lot of our water meters are upwards of 60% are over 15 years old. And so we start to see deterioration. There's also, we can respond once the system's in place, and we can respond much more quickly to water leaks and really tracking water loss in the system. And it improves the accuracy of our data collection and our billing collection. So there are a lot of different varied reasons why this is going to be an improved system, but knowing that we need to replace those water meters anyway, and that this is really the way that this industry is going. So the current status of the project is that the city is actively, well, first I'll just say the propagation study, which I believe was ongoing during the last update, has been completed. That was completed, I believe, in the third quarter of 2021. And that was a study of where the wireless antenna needed to be mounted around the order in order to collect the data from all the meters on the island. There were several iterations of this propagation study, but finally what we ended on was putting antenna on 7 different poles around the island that really could collect all of that data. So they will all be housed on island. And I'll talk about that a little bit more detail in a bit. So now it's really looking forward to the installation of the new water meters and getting the poles and the antenna up. Right now, the city is in active contract negotiations with the installer and the software provider for this project. This has taken us a little bit longer than we anticipated, but I will say that we are getting much closer to a final contract. So hopefully we'll have some news for you on that soon.
Just looking at the slides, that looks to be it. Do you mind taking some questions on this before we turn to the ARPA project?
I'm going to give you one more slide. It didn't want
to. All right, great.
Yeah, so we are expecting that construction on this project is going to begin later in this year, hopefully sooner than later. And there's really, I want to just highlight that there are 2 major components to this project. One of them, of course, is the meter deployment. So going out and actually replacing all of the meters. And we're hoping to do that over a 2-year construction window. If we're able to start early enough this year, we're hoping to get half of them out in 2022 and half of them out in 2023. Concurrently to the meter deployment is also putting up these collectors. So the wireless collectors. And I just want to highlight that we've identified that there are 7 poles that really need to be either replaced or mounted on the island. And of those 7, 4 of them are actually owned by PSE. And so we are starting the process of working with PSE in order to negotiate the mounting of those antenna, making sure that the poles are of an adequate height, and so on. It is a long process, and so we are anxious to get that going with them and get this process moving forward. The good news is that even in the absence of these antenna being up and starting to actually collect data, these meters operate in the same way, where they can be read in the same way manually that they are now to our current meter system. So this won't hold up any part of the project that we can see. And then as soon as those are deployed and are functioning, we will be, working on the integration into both the city's billing system and all of the software that comes with that. Yes, I see that that we have board member Thomas has a question.
You're muted, Brian.
I'm mute.
You selected 7 locations or poles to put the antenna on. Did you do that, or did a contractor locate them in order to determine coverage? Are you confident that it'll hit the whole island?
Yeah, and I welcome Alan Hunter to come on to speak to this also, because he did work with the consultant on the propagation study. But yes, that was why the process took quite a while, was really making sure that we had coverage around the island. One thing that I did want to point out that Alan reminded me of today is that the 4 poles that are owned by PSE actually are ones that have a smaller diameter coverage. So the 3 that are actually publicly owned are ones that that cover most of the island. Those PSE poles cover smaller areas where maybe we have challenging topography that might interrupt the wireless signal, or, you know, just getting little pockets of the island. So that's also really good news, because I think it'll have a smaller impact that those are delayed. So Alan, do you want to jump on and say anything about the propagation study?
No, that was probably one of the reasons why the propagation study took so long, is just finding these locations that would capture, you know, the 3 main sites collectors captured the majority of the meters, but the little pockets is what the issue was as far as capturing the, with the propagation study taking so long. So now that we've identified those areas, we can move forward. Unfortunately, those little pockets are the ones that are on the PSE poles that will have to be modified.
And how is PSC knows that you're planning to attach to those poles?
Actually, yes, we've been working with PSE to go over that. In fact, we're not actually going to have to attach to the poles. We'll have to replace the poles, because we'll need a minimum of an 80-foot pole to attach our collector antenna to. So PSE will have to replace the poles.
80 an 80-foot pole?
Yes.
Oh my. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
And Alan, a quick follow-up question. That you talked about the propagation study, is that just based off GIS, or were you actually out in the field with transmitters and receivers?
They did a combination of both. They did GIS, they did a combination of, you know, outfield work, and they also used cell phone coverage as part of that propagation study, because we also need to have these cell phones to be able to take the data from the collectors and send them back to the head end of the system.
Thanks.
And that answered my question in terms of the cell phone backhaul. And just to verify, that the plan is that's an OpEx, basically an operating expense you'll be paying ongoing for that?
Correct.
Okay. There's no versus potentially having your own fiber network or something like that in order to be able to backhaul that back to City Hall.
The collectors that do have fiber to them. So for instance, we have a collector at the Reservoir, and we have one at the Public Works building. Those are on fiber, so those ones will not have to have cell coverage. All the other ones.
Gotcha. And then you said three of the poles are publicly owned. So as in those are city-owned poles specifically?
They will be city-owned poles, correct.
Okay, city-owned poles. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, an 80-foot pole is a pretty atypical utility pole. So I assume we're going to be making make-ready payments to PSE to plant the pole.
Yes, yeah, we will have to pay to install these poles.
Yeah.
Have them installed. Not only will I have to pay to have them install the poles, but they will also have to install the equipment above the power for us.
Yeah, yeah. We don't have qualified people to get above the safety
And maintain it in the future. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, as board member Andrel knows, I have some familiarity with attaching material to other parties' poles. Having had at least 2 week-long trials on the issue over the course of my career. Yeah, the good thing is those are relatively standard now, but this is a non-standard kind of attachment, so it'll be interesting to, have we gotten any flack from PSE about the process?
No, not at all. They're actually very cooperative and eager to help us out on that. So like I said, they'll take care of everything, the installation above the power. There'll be a box below that we will be in charge of, but they're they're on board. We just have to get the process going.
Good. We kind of leapt into questions, I mean, before you were really finished with your slides. I mean,
That's okay.
think
That's okay.
you were really about communication with customers. Tell us about
Yeah. So
plan
I
with
just
that.
wanted to note that the city did hire HDR as the project management on this project. They will really see it from start to finish once that contract is executed with the installer. And then I did want to highlight that, you know, communication with customers on this project is going to be a really large component once we're ready to deploy. This is going to affect basically everyone with a meter, right? So, you know, we are looking at going through our normal channels, you know, social media and our weekly newsletter, as well as potentially a mailer. And, you know, we did want to put out to the board that if you all have any ideas about how, you know, other avenues you think the city could use in order to reach out and really connect with people, let them know what's happening and why. We're always happy to hear that feedback. So, but that is going to be a really large push on the city's part, is just getting out information to the public as soon as we have a schedule. And that's it for AMI. And we can either jump to ARPA, or if there are other questions, we can certainly take those.
No, I do think the communication, you know, it's easy to talk about what I'll refer to as broadcast communication, you know, communication to the entire population of the island about the project. It will need to be, of course, specific to individuals as we get to the process of actually replacing the meters. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't like referring to my own situation, other than I suppose if it happens to me, it's typical to everybody. My water meter is literally in the middle of my driveway. Mm-hmm. So if someone was to just come by and start ripping the darn thing out, you know, there would be the capacity for some disruption.
Right. Yes. Well, we'll certainly be working through all of the details on this as we get closer to the installation, but we want to give plenty of lead time and a lot of different opportunities for people to learn about the project. A project landing site on the city's website where people can go for more information and know who to reach out to if they have very specific questions. So that will certainly be a component.
I will just say, you know, I've been on the board for 9, I can't remember, Steve, is it 10 or 9 or 10? 9 or 10 years now. And we've been talking about this project since I was on the board. So I'm glad to see that it's actually coming, the finish line is in sight.
I think we're all very happy about that.
Very good.
And
any other questions or comments about the meter replacement program?
Yeah, I've got a question. And regarding the actual meters, I presume those are form and fit identical to the old ones. So it's just a matter of opening up the box, cleaning the muck out, unscrewing the old one, and the new one just screws in the exact same configuration.
Yeah, they're pretty much, for the residential, you'll have the same lay length on those meters as you will with the existing. As we get into the commercial, we may have to do some adjustments to the commercials. But they're pretty much plug and play.
Okay.
Anybody else? I'm told board member Marshall is with us now. George, anything from you?
He's still in the attendees side, so I don't think he'll be able to speak yet.
there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like
There we go.
And there he is.
George, welcome. Any questions? And you are muted, and so if you're trying to say something, we can't hear you. Any questions about this before we move to the next topic?
But no, I don't. Thank you, though.
Great. Thank you. All right, let's move to ARPA.
Okay. Good evening,
Or
board
as
members.
sometimes called "It's Raining Money." So
Yeah. Before I start, I just wanted to make sure that you could hear me clearly. The last public meeting I was in using Zoom, some people could hear me, some people could not. So I just want to double check. Thanks for the thumbs up.
you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, let's just wait for the slide deck to pop up. So I think most of you probably have heard of ARPA. ARPA stands for the American Rescue Plan Act. It's the federal economic stimulus package that was created in response to the economic and public safety impacts of the pandemic. And I think every city across the nation is receiving funds, and our allocation is $7.23 million. I think it comes in two pieces. The ARPA funds are restricted in terms of how they can be used. They can be used to invest in water, sewer, stormwater, and broadband utility infrastructure. I'm not sure why or how they added in broadband, but that's one of the allowable uses. Last fall, the City Council received a staff presentation on the potential projects that could be accelerated with the use of ARPA funds. Next Tuesday, on the 15th, we are going to be going back to the City Council, making a request for use of ARPA funding to complete the design of 5 different projects this year, so we can be construction ready for 2023 and 2024. Since we anticipate being ready for construction in 2023 and 2024, those projects, at least the construction phase, will be rolled into the 6-year CIP, and specifically years 2023 and 2024. What that means is that it will be part of the capital budget process that will occur later this year. That also means that you, as the utility board, will be seeing these projects again as part of that budget process. So the next slide, I believe, is a map that shows the different projects. And if you are all good at counting, you'll see that there are 7 projects. And I was talking about 5. 3 of these 7 are sewer pipe upsize projects. So we're going to be consolidating those 3 projects into one to get an economy of scale, both from the design aspect as well as construction. Now, if you look at the upper left-hand corner, there's a project called the First Hill Booster Station Generator Replacement. We're proposing to replace an underground generator that serves our First Hill Water Booster Station. And then going to the lower left, there's a project called the Pressure Reducing Valve Station Replacements. And if you look for the 5 green triangles, those are the 5 pressure reducing stations that we're going to be focusing on out of the 85 that we have in our system. And then lower right-hand corner, the reservoir pump replacements. We have 2 projects at the reservoir site. The reservoir pump replacements, you've heard of that a couple of times, I think, before last year. And then also at the reservoir site are the reservoir improvements. And I will be talking about all of these 5 projects slide by slide. So Elaine, if you can go to the next slide. So let's start at the reservoir site. The reservoir pump replacements, we have a comprehensive assessment of the pump system at the reservoir. It's underway now, and we anticipate it being completed around March of this year, so at the end of Q1. The assessment is intended to look at all of the pumps to make sure that what we are going to propose in terms of the replacement is the right and the best thing to do. We don't want to be short-sighted and maybe replace a couple pumps, but not take care of everything. We want to take a more holistic approach and then do the right thing. Once the assessment is completed, then we'll commence the design process, and we anticipate the design to be done around the end of this year. The cost of the design will be covered through existing budgeted funds, and then construction will commence in 2023, probably into 2024. We're proposing the use of ARPA funds. And then the water reservoir improvements, we had a site assessment completed in 2021 that was primarily focused on our 2 steel above ground reservoir tanks. Both are 4 million gallons in size. And the last time that we did any major work on the reservoirs was back in 1999. just before the Nisqually earthquake. That work was primarily related to a seismic retrofit, so structurally strengthening both of those tanks and some of the piping going in and out of the tanks. The other major part of the work that was done, I think right after the earthquake or around the time of the earthquake, was replacing the exterior and the interior coatings of the reservoir. One of the reasons that it's so important to maintain those coatings is that as long as you can protect the inside and the outside of these steel tanks, you're not going to have much of any corrosion. But if we don't maintain those coatings, you can have corrosion, and in the long term, it can affect the structural integrity of the tanks. The assessment found that both tanks were in overall good condition structurally, but that the interior and the exterior coatings were reaching the end of their useful life. And then they found some odds and ends, including things like a need to replace some of the grout around the base of the steel tanks. The grout was kind of raveling or spalling and coming apart a little bit. And they also recommended replacing the ladders, the steel ladders that are welded to the exterior of the tank. They were recommending to install a staircase instead around the outside of the tank. And part of that is related to safety. It's easier and safer to use a stairway rather than a ladder. And especially if our crews are carrying equipment and material, it's very difficult and quite hazardous to try to lug those things up a ladder. And then there were a few other minor odds and ends in addition to that. The design will start for this work in the first quarter of this year. We'll again be using existing budget, and we are shooting for getting under construction for the south tank in the third quarter of this year using our ARPA funds. And then after that work is done, then we would move to the north tank. The reason that we're not doing them both at the same time is that the reservoirs hold a lot of water, and we need that water to efficiently operate our system. And the reason that we are hoping to start this work in the third quarter of the year is it's after the summer, after the high water demand season. So we feel that after the summer is over, it's easier to take one of those reservoirs down to do that work. So that's our plan. And then moving on to First Hill, like I said, we have a booster pump station for the water system up on First Hill. And because it's part of our critical infrastructure, we have a generator that will run in the event that we lose power. However, that generator is 30 years old. And so it really is reaching the end of its useful life. And we believe that some of the current codes might require that a new generator would have to be housed in a larger vault. We will know better as we get further into the design process, and we anticipate the design being completed by the end of this year. And the estimated cost of that design work is about $250,000. This again is going to be a 2023-2024 construction project. And then this next project is the sewer pipe upsizing. And like I said before, we're consolidating 3 different sewer segments of sewer. The first one is along West Mercer Way in front of West Mercer Elementary School. And then the other 2 are at the south end of the town center. One goes underneath Mercerdale Park and extends north a little bit along 77th Avenue. And then the other piece is in Southeast 32nd Street, immediately adjacent to Mercerdale Park. Our hope, if it's possible, would be to use a trenchless technology to get through the park, but we won't know for sure whether or not that's feasible until we, again, get into the design process. And we're always trying to find ways to work smarter, better, faster, and more economically. And that's why we are trying to combine these 3 projects into one. And it's not just cost savings, but one benefit is on the human resource side. If we have 3 different projects, we might have 3 different inspectors. A lot of the administrative processes would be very repetitious. And if we're working with 3 different contractors, it's a lot to manage versus having one contractor, one inspector, one administrative process. So that's what we're doing with this one. And again, construction for this project is in 2023 and 2024. And then yes.
I have a
Lisa?
question, Patrick, if you don't mind me interrupting. Thank you. What is the practical consequence of having an undersized sewer pipe?
That's a great question.
I mean, if anybody were to ask, it'd be like, well, it's
yes.
Well, yeah, but so nothing bad has happened. So what's the risk run by not doing the project?
So when you think of a sewer system, the sewers are supposed to only collect things out of the drains inside of your house, your shower, your toilet, your sink, your washing machine, all of those things. Inadvertently, most sewer systems are very, very old. Our sewers are 50, 60, 70 years in age. Sewers in other cities might be 100 or 100 plus years in age. Those older sewers sometimes existed before there was a public drainage system. So in many cities, including on Mercer Island, occasionally there might be a roof drain that's connected to the sewer. And when it rains hard, that's a lot of water, especially if there are multiple roof drains throughout a neighborhood that feeds the sewer system. Those sewers were never designed or sized to accommodate stormwater. So that's one issue. When it rains really, really hard, the sewers end up collecting rainwater either from illicit or illegal connections, meaning connections that were not allowed and are not supposed to be part of our sewer system. The other thing is that sometimes over time, a sewer main will deteriorate and the joints between the pipe sections might start to fall apart and become leaky. And if there's a high groundwater level in the areas where our sewers are, by the end of the winter, that ground is saturated. So then all of the water that's in the surrounding soil will seep into the sewers. Bottom line is that we and other cities often and always get some kind of stormwater related water into the sewer pipes. So over time, if we don't do anything about either the direct connections that are not allowed or the leaky pipes, we will get more and more stormwater into those sewers. And when we don't have enough capacity in those sewer lines, the water or the wastewater has to go somewhere. Sometimes if those sewers are shallow, the sewage might overflow into the street. The worst case scenario is if there are some basements that are not very much higher than the sewer line in the street, those sewer mains could relieve themselves into those basements, creating property damage and then ultimately people filing significantly sized claims. So that's a long explanation, but I thought it was helpful to kind of provide enough information so all of you kind of understand what the issue is and what the concern and potential risk is.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Great. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
I think that's actually also what happened, or a similar issue along some of the Lakeline projects where even during like holidays and stuff where there was backups into homes along the waterfront is one of the easiest places for that to happen, I think, right? The low points in the system.
Right. I think in that particular situation, it might not have been that the pipes were undersized, but there was a blockage, either a complete blockage or an obstruction that reduced the flow capacity in the pipe because of the obstruction.
Yeah.
But
I just meant the
ramifications
ramifications of the overflows, because that can create major issues at the exact wrong times.
Yeah. And in a past career, I have been in houses or basements where the sewage had backed up 4, 5, 6, 7 feet. It's not a pretty sight.
No.
Yeah. That was not on Mercer Island, by the way.
So Patrick, so that I understand, the concern that you raised about stormwater feeding into the sewer system is not really going to be addressed by this upsizing project. The project is just really getting at the pipe under the ground, right?
It will address some of it. when we replace these sewer mains, any portions of these segments of sewer mains that were leaking would be replaced with a fully new pipe and good gaskets where any groundwater that was getting into those pipes would no longer be getting in. But it
So as you go
doesn't.
through and upsize these sewer lines,
Mhm.
are we checking for attachments to the sewer main that shouldn't be there? I mean, that's what I'm trying to correlate what you were talking
Yes.
about stormwater coming in with these three projects.
Yeah, that's a great question. We're doing a project in a different neighborhood. It's called Basin 40. It's above, it's in the Mercerwood neighborhood. And there we're in the process of designing a relining of the existing sewer system in a neighborhood. The relining is not going to increase the size of the pipes, but we know based on experience and some investigation in the past that that neighborhood drains to a pump station, and whenever it rains, it's very difficult for the pump station to keep up with those flows because they increase exponentially when it rains. So as part of this relining project, we have been looking for those direct sources of inflow. Right. And where we can find those, we are eliminating them as part of the project before we do the lining.
I see that you stopped sharing screen. We kind of started jumping on you with questions while you were halfway through. Did you have more to talk with us about?
I only had one more slide, and it was on the PRV replacements. Okay. Like I said before, we have 85 PRVs. We were able to assess 20 of those PRVs as part of our risk and resilience assessment last year. And that the assessment found that most of those PRVs are deteriorating. If you look at the photo to the right, looks a little bit nasty, kind of ugly and corroded.
The word I was going to use, yeah.
And PRVs are really a critical part of the water system. We have 85 in our relatively small system. Some much larger cities don't have as many PRVs. We have a lot of PRVs because of our topography. PRVs are used to control or reduce the pressure in parts of our system. When we have, for example, a water main on East Mercer Way, but it's serving a neighborhood that's well below East Mercer Way, the pressure in that lower area without a PRV would be quite high. So we install these PRVs to reduce that pressure to a reasonable pressure. If a PRV fails, then the pressure may completely increase down below. And the worst case scenario, I think, would be a water main break. And especially on a slope, that is not something that we want. That's not something anyone wants. And we know what happened in Bellevue when there was that water main break. Very unfortunate, and we don't want that either.
Talk about large claims. We wouldn't want to be this city of Bellevue right now.
Yes. So based on what we found in the assessment, we're going to be proposing a systematic upgrade of our aging PRVs. Our plan is to look at 5 PRVs every biennium. Right now, this first design effort appears to be somewhere on the order of about $400,000 for the design. And then once the design is completed, we will roll the construction into the 2023-2024 CIP. And then when it comes to the remaining PRVs, we're going to try to assess those over time through ongoing CIP.
Thank you very much. Before I open it up to other members of the board for questions, I'll use my prerogative and ask one first. What of these projects that you just walked us through, Patrick, are projects that were already in the long range construction program, and are any of them new completely, not having been in the construction program before?
I might have to have Alan weigh in on this, but let's see. The PRVs, I'm not sure if those were in our 6-year plan.
No,
but
the only thing we had in the long range, Patrick, was the reservoir tank replacements. And then as far as the sewer system plan, the upsize of the sewer pipes. The other projects were in addition.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, including the pump replacements at the booster pump station at the reservoir site, because that is something that just came to our attention when we found that there was some mercury seals in some of the pumps, I believe.
Thank you. Do other board members have questions? Steve, you're muted.
You're muted, Steve.
Yeah, it's Zoom. So the picture you had about the with the pressure reducing valves, so it showed two different mechanisms. Does that count as two different PRVs in the system, or was that just one PRV with the kind of the two valves?
Just one PRV.
Yeah,
Yeah, we call it a PRV station.
Got it.
you have one PRVs for high flow and the other one's for low flow.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it was if it was like
Mhm.
you know 40 positions
Yes,
around the
that's another
area
great
that were a
question.
couple of different valves in each one, or if it's 80 different locations
Mhm.
within the city,
Yes.
80 plus. Whatever.
85 separate locations.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, this
Ryan,
is-
Yeah.
George, we can't see you, so we can't see you wave your hand, but please go ahead, and then Brian after you, George.
Okay. Yeah, this is mystery guest George. Question for Patrick on the ARPA funding. Is there a sunset clause on this funding that it's a use or a lose by a certain date? Or has this money been allocated already to the city and the city can sequence the projects as it sees fit?
I believe the first half or first part of the funds have been given to the city of Mercer Island, and I think we're awaiting the second part. There is, from what I recall, a sunset date for use of those. Maya, our capital project manager, might know what that time frame is.
Yeah, so I believe that we have to commit to using the funds by the end of 2024, but then completely use the funds by the end of 2026.
I just wanted to introduce Maya. Maya is one of our newer capital project managers. She's been with us in this role for about 1.5 years or so, right, Maya? And in that very, very short period of time, she has taken on lots of projects. She's very dependable, and she is this part of this new crop of engineers and project managers that we're trying to hire and train up, because we know that some of us are not quite as young as we were 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. And we want to plan ahead. We want to make sure that as we see staff kind of approaching retirement, that we're already looking at hiring people and training people up, so there's no gap, no loss in experience. And so I think Maya is a really great start in that effort.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Thomas, you had a question, I think.
I just was going to ask about the sewer line replacements. Could you describe, you said that you're exploring not having to trench to do the replacement. How would you, if you, what's the alternative? How would it work? Is it just boring?
There are a couple of ways of replacing or lining sewers that does not require trenching along the entire length of the segment that you want to replace. One is kind of a fiberglass resin impregnated sock or fabric. It's kind of like pulling a sock into the pipe.
Yeah.
And then you either fill it with hot water or steam, and that starts a chemical reaction that hardens that sock. So that's one way, but that only works in a sewer line that is in pretty good shape in terms of the grade of the pipe, that it is sloping in the right direction, that there's not low points in that sewer line. Because if there are low points and you line it with this kind of technology, that sag or low point will still be there after you line it. There's another technology that's called pipe bursting. You can pull this hydraulic head through the sewer main, and it actually expands and breaks the existing pipe, and that head is pulling in a new pipe right behind it.
Okay.
And again, if the grade is okay and there are no major sags, then that might be a technology that we could use.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? If no one has another question, I do. I did read the October 19 publication. It was included with our agenda packet, and in that discussion, there is a discussion about the 5 projects you talked about, Patrick, and then another one, the GIS utility network data upgrade. And I didn't hear you talk about that. Did we decide to forego that, or and then so this is a two-parter. In that same program, the first 4 projects were recommended, then the last 2 projects were for consideration. The ones that were for consideration made your list of 5 here. So, I mean, where are we in that process? Are these all decided upon at this point?
Regarding the GIS utility network data upgrade, I believe that went to council last Tuesday for appropriation. But because it wasn't kind of utility infrastructure, it wasn't part of our package tonight. But I believe it is or will be funded through ARPA.
And it will be funded through the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, that's what I understand. Mm-hmm.
It looked like actually the larger list from the previous council meeting was actually larger than the ARPA funding allocation. Is the rest of that coming out of regular budgets, or was one of the projects reduced in scope or in order to fit under the 7.23 million cap?
That larger list, I think, included the full project costs. And right now we're just asking for appropriations related to the design or the engineering. If, as we move forward through the budget process and our construction cost estimates are refined, if we're still too high to cover everything with the ARPA, then I think we would be proposing use of whichever appropriate utility fund is necessary to kind of supplement or bridge the gap.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else for Patrick? Seeing none. Patrick, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Elaine,
all the great questions.
Yeah, and Elaine, thank you for your presentation about the water meter project. I mean, it is really great to see these things coming to fruition, and I know these are all valuable projects that we get to accelerate by virtue of this gift from the feds. Thank you very much. That is the last item of regular business. Other business on the agenda is our work plan. We are currently scheduled to not have a meeting in March. I see April 12, we have an agenda, SCADA sewer project update, and then also an update from King County about the interceptor project. Is there anything to add to that consideration? I realize Jason is not present, but Patrick, Elaine, anybody have anything else that we might be taking up next time?
No, I think that those are going to be the 2 major updates that you're going to hear about at the April meeting. In May, which is the next meeting after that, it looks like there's board elections and then the sustainability utilities work plan update. We skipped June. I believe that's also on the updated work plan, and go right to July, where there is the field trip, the daytime field trip for utility sites. That's correct.
Yes.
I you
please block out your
calendar.
calendars.
Yeah.
That really is a great day, I think.
Yeah.
Great to get out in the field and actually see things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't done it in several years, so looking forward to it.
And then,
I don't know that we need to go out much further than that. I mean, we've
yeah.
got two recesses in summer. Of course, if things pop that we need to revisit recessing for any of those, we always can, of course.
Yeah, I think the only other thing that's really coming up, which is something that Patrick was talking about in that update, was that the July meeting that evening is when there's actually the utility CIP preview for the next biennium. So I think that's going to be a big meaty item for that meeting. So
Very, very much so. George and Steve, if you've not gone through this before, the CIP really is one of the main drivers, if not the main driver of the budget, and hence the rates, which we will turn our attention to in fall. So it's very critical. All right. Anything else about the work plan? Is there anything that anyone believes should be on our agenda to discuss over the course of the year that isn't thus far? Okay, hearing none. Next meeting, April 12th. I will raise just under other business, something new. I don't know if the other members of the board have had a chance to review Mayor Nice's letter to our legislators about the zoning bill that is pending. If you haven't had a chance to review that, I would urge you to do so. The mayor makes fairly substantial points about the planning process that this board and of course the utility department engages in. So it really is something that is worth your time to take a look at and consider and take whatever action you believe appropriate.
I had sent in some information and got feedback from Senator Wellman's office that it had not moved out of committee in time, so will not be in this year's thing on the Senate side.
Yes, the Senate bill is still in Ways and Means. The House bill is still live. I just checked just before this meeting. It's past appropriations. It's in the Rules Committee, so it's eligible to be submitted to the floor. The next cutoff, I know too much about this because I spend too much time down in Olympia this time of year. The next cutoff is next week, the 15th. So they've got essentially a week to get it out of one chamber, and it's probably the House.
Yeah, I've been, I think many of the council members are encouraging constituents to express their views to the senator and representatives. And, you know, I whether you are pro or against, you know, increased density, either in the North End or anywhere on the island, you have to kind of look objectively about what it would do to our infrastructure systems and say, you know, can we handle that? So
we'll be talking about more undersized sewer pipes.
Yes, we will.
Okay, that was just a comment from your chair. Is there any other business that should come before the board?
I think the only other update that I wanted to provide was that the utility board still does have one vacancy. The city is accepting applications for that vacancy until February 11th. So just want to remind everyone about that. So if you know of someone who might be interested, please reach out to them. We are very happy to have applicants.
Do you know if we have any applicants at this point?
I do not know what the current tally is. Apologies.
Thank you.
So I just noticed my term expires at the end of May. When is the process for assuming I want to continue?
Yeah, are you going to sign up again? So.
I don't know. The chairman's been kind of ruthless lately, so I've been rethinking my involvement. But
I want to run a tight meeting, Brian. That's all I ask.
Is that process? Will I get some sort of notification about that later?
You will. So the city clerk will reach out to you about that as it approaches.
Yeah. Councilmember Anderl will probably oppose it, so I might just consider holding off. But
oh no, I'm going to introduce a resolution that says that you're in for another term, whether you want it or not.
all right. Well, I'll rethink that. And never mind. Let's go. Okay. Thank you. I got the information.
You didn't know there was a draft within the city of Mercer Island, did you?
I'll take that offline with her.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other business? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, discussion. Second, and anything else? No, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Unanimous. All right, very good.
Good job, Tim.
Thank you, everybody.
Models of efficiency. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Stephen, that is a great pet to end the evening. So take care, everybody. See you in April.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.